Now presenting the safe state.
Robocop.
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 Robocop. It's becoming more Latvian.
Robocop. Rogue City.
Robocop. Rouge City.
Rogue City.
Robo Rouge.
Robo City. Rogue Cop.
Robo City Rogue Cop does sound like a fucking phenomenal game as well. Get on that as well. This one's going to be
the creators
dope.
of Hotline Miami.
Yes.
Come.
My head wound has finally healed enough that I think I'm going to attempt to shave my head again today.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I've started on a new skincare routine. By that I mean I've just started.
A skincare routine?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm supposed to I haven't really ever moisturized or used sunscreen or any of that stuff because I've just never needed it to because
you carry a parasol with you wherever you go?
No, I'm just oily. I've never had sunburn. I just don't know.
Huh.
I'm a freak. But then I've started reading the side effects of some of the medications I take, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm very likely to get skin cancer, in my lifetime. So I've had to start taking that more seriously, and part of that was also just figuring out what goop on my skin is going to not suck and how to clear off the goop that exists on my skin so that I can put more goop on my skin.
I can never sing the praises enough of a solid Bior strip for your face, nose, forehead, cheeks. You can't go wrong. That stuff's wonderful.
What does that do?
You put it on and you let it sit up. You get it a little damped wet, warm water, and just let it. It'll stiffen almost like it's a plaster cast. And then when you pull it off, it has pulled out from your pores all of this gunk.
Oh.
It's wild. It's if I let it go too long, it's just 1,000 little stalactites clinging to this thing off my nose. I know, but it's oddly satisfying because this is the cleanest the middle of my nose has ever been.
I don't know. I don't really have that problem. See, I've got absolutely massive pores to the point that the stuff just can't get trapped in there. It's like
it
small
just falls
pools.
back out. It's too loose.
Yeah, exactly.
Loose pores.
I just got yeah, they're just huge. I honestly I get a pimple a year at most. Not to brag, but it's just
No, brag away. I miss that. Going back into a kitchen life, wearing the bandanas on my head every day. I have to be constantly washing my face up, or they will just appear around the edges of my forehead. It's so annoying. I'm almost 40, and I'm still getting acne flare-ups from time to time.
Yeah, my one downside to my condition is that I basically, if I don't shower every day, I leave oil prints behind, on couches and chairs and stuff like that. Just.
Are you part slug?
I kind of feel like it.
How do you know Arvid's been through here? Well, you can see the slime trail from his feet.
Luckily, it's mostly my head, so. But yeah, no. If I jump into a pool, if I haven't showered, it just leaves an oil slick. There's people out there with the Downy or the Dawn ship detergent.
We need a hazmat crew. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to kill all the ducks.
God, this has not been good content.
No.
Think about something funny. Watch a terrible movie again. I keep doing this to myself.
Oh, interesting.
I watched Sausage Party. Have you heard of this movie?
I have seen it.
It's so fucking bad.
Really
Especially
bad.
because, have you seen Food Fight? I've showed you Food Fight.
I
right?
have
Because that's one of the movies I made you watch.
Food Fight. You didn't make us watch the whole thing. You made us watch select clips from Food Fight.
Okay.
When
okay.
we were,
Yeah,
I think we were having a Uncanny Valley discussion, and you were like, "Let me show you Uncanny Valley."
Yeah. So, seeing Sausage Party after watching Food Fight, it's just like someone saw Food Fight and was like, this is a good idea. We just need to do it properly. And by that I mean hire Judd Apatow's entire stable of actors to voice these terrible characters.
Mm-hmm. Get me Nick Kroll and Seth Rogen.
Exactly. It's I don't think the voice acting was the problem with that movie. It was terrible. I don't even know who gave these people the money. What were they thinking? Because it's supposed to be adult animation, but aside from the fact that they say the F word constantly and all the jokes are bad, I don't know that it looks a lot different than the Minions or whatever. If a kid walked in, he would just be like, why are the cartoons swearing?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could be like, well, maybe they're trying to do a Conker's Bad Fur Day thing, but I don't know. Conker was I think the difference is Conker was trying to was making commentary on the game itself, on games.
Right.
And doing it in an adult, but Sausage Party has no interest in commenting on anything other than food.
You're right. It's like when a teenager tries to become edgy, but they don't know what that is yet.
No,
They're
exactly.
just I know swear words, so I'm going to start using those a lot more. But they don't use them correctly or too much. It's got a weird energy to it. So yeah, it's this ain't Pixar. XXX.
It's also if that kid in middle school who would carry around cigarettes to prove how cool he was and definitely knew what sex was because he looked at porn and would tell you all about how sex worked, and you're I don't think any of this is how that works.
The boobs feel like bags of sand, right?
And that's exactly the tone for this entire movie. But at the same time, maybe that would have been funny if it was about adolescence or something like that. But they're not. They're food items. It's supposed to be Toy Story, but it's food.
Yeah.
I don't know. Other than the fact that they worked backwards from the title Sausage Party, that's about as far as I could figure.
Well, and help remind me, because I saw it not when it was in theaters.
In
but
theaters?
No, but shortly after it came out. It was one of those well, I got nothing else to do. Let's rent this one. I think it was still a rentable. I don't know if it was a Blockbuster. Might have been a Redbox.
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause I think it came out in 2016.
Might have been a Redbox.
Redbox era.
But is there a wild sex scene or orgy with all the food?
Oh yeah,
in it sequence? Because I think that's when I was I think I'm out.
I think that's the end. That's actually the climax.
It
of the
is
movie.
the end. Okay. Well, then they chose the right spot for it because.
Yeah,
that was
that honestly almost made me change my mind around it because it's so unhinged. The credits start playing over this food orgy, and it's literally not people eating. It's just food having sex with each other.
Yes,
and you're this is almost Fellini-esque in its debauchery. I was almost maybe this movie's good, but then I was no, that was just if it had kept up with that tone the entire way through, we were just I don't understand, I can't.
That would be more
this.
a Ralph Bakshi, Fritz the Cat thing that I could get into.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that's also something maybe they were trying to do that, but what is transgressive in 1970? What's transgressive in 2016 are two very different things.
Weirdly enough, the 70s version more inappropriate. 70s, they just went hard with their stuff.
Yeah. Ugh.
Man.
Anyway, that's Arvid's terrible movie. But speaking of bad movies, we played the video game adaptation of Robocop 3. Sort of, kind of. It isn't actually, but it is kind of.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Save State. This is a podcast where we talk about video games. Today we're talking about Robocop.
Rouge City.
Rouge City, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue City. And it's really good. I like this a lot.
It was really good. So many games these days have been focused on these massive open worlds, and there's open world-esque sequences in this game. It's a leveled game. It has stages that you go through. but
It's a shooter. We should also.
it is an
It's like
FPS.
a first-person shooter again.
Yep. It in the best way, like a classic FPS shooter. It's not on rails as much as some of, even like a Half-Life was kind of
Right.
starting to move away from that on rails, but still very tightly contained. But man, I realized I think I'm really burned out on open world games when I was playing this.
No, exactly. And the other thing is, like, this game probably would have been an open world game if it had come out 10 years ago, at least in the sense that we would have thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because there are kind of open maps and stuff like that. But really, like, if we're talking about like structure, the game it reminded me most of was I can never remember the name of it. Is it DSX?
Mankind Divided? Or Human Revolution?
The one set in Detroit. Which one's that? I can never remember.
I think that's Mankind Divided. No, that's Prague. Human Revolution.
Okay, yeah. So the first Adam Jensen one, I think.
Marcus would know that far better and faster than me.
I mean, I played all of them. I can never remember the names of them. There's such generic names, but also set in Detroit. But it just like that kind of where you have like these more immersive simmy portions that lead to like more corridor shootery levels that go back to. You have it kind of fluctuates between. It felt like a throwback in like all the good ways. Like it kind of feels like the video game industry has kind of forgotten how to make these like good, not great, 7 out of 10 shooters that like are just like I feel like these were like the bread and butter for gaming, like the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 era of games.
Your double A's.
And we cut. Yeah, exactly. It's a double. It's a licensed AA game shooter. You know, that is just trying to be what it is. Like it doesn't have any pretensions of being a live service monster. It doesn't pretend it's going to be the game you're playing for the next 40 years. And it also isn't like a cash grab. It's like
there's no gimmicky like skin changes for Robocop.
Well, there are some skins you
there's
can buy.
Some
but
skins,
like,
but like it's not that bad.
No, I mean it is it's amazing how like I forgot how much I missed this style of game where it and also like they just do a really good job adapting Robocop to a video game. Like I think this might be one of the better, like the only video game adaptation of a movie I can think of it as a better job than this. And it's not really a true adaptation of a movie. It's more an adaptation of the characters and setting. Is maybe like at Alien Isolation. Like that's the game that kept popping into my head.
Yeah. And even that one, like the only thing that's really from the movie, like, is references to the Nostromo and a xenomorph. Like,
well, and it's also like the setting and
it's,
like
no, it's the setting.
Like,
I know, but like, yeah, this even is more true to the movie because of the use of the actual IP characters.
Yeah, like I think that, and I also like Alien Isolation does such a good job about being an adaptation of the movie because it like understood what the movie was about. Because Alien Isolation is an adaptation of Alien. It's not an adaptation of Aliens.
Right.
You know, it is a horror game in which you have
Hide
little
and
to no
seek.
control over the environment around
Yep.
you. Exactly. And Robocop is a shooter where you just walk into rooms, shoot enemies into gore, and then march through like
It's
that's
a power
like,
fantasy.
and there is and like it leans so hard into like what Robocop is like, and the fact that you have to like you walk all through this game. You don't even like even the sprint function is like slightly faster.
It's
it is not
serial killer pacing. Like
exactly. Yeah, and I love that. Like I love that it makes you slow down that much because aside from the fact it puts you like kind of in RoboCop's like boots, so to speak, and you kind of get this stomping effect as you walk around, not unlike like a power armor in like a Fallout game. But it also means that you have to look at the environment around you a lot more. Like you can't just sprint through rooms and stuff like that. And they put a ton of work into the environment in this game. Like I loved like every weird little puddle. Like they put like that thing that is very RoboCop. I guess this is something it's specific to like retro science fiction in general, but like with RoboCop and with Alien, there's like an aspect of it that's science fiction, but then they're also using aspects of reality that is the reality of when the movie was made. and they kind of merge together, but that crystallizes when that movie is made, and it becomes retrofuturistic going backwards.
Yep.
So like with Alien, you still had like CRT screens and like 8-track tapes and stuff like that.
It's how I'd build my spaceships now if I could.
And then with Robocop, you have the same thing. Like everything's you still have like these old CRT screens. Everyone drives like Ford Crown Vics, and all this stuff. It's like it's so they do such a good job of not capturing just the sci-fi aspect of RoboCop, but like the reality of an action movie from the 80s. Yeah. And it's like all there in like every set piece, like every like all the like you go into this game is in you end up in like 1,000 different warehouses, but at the same time it never feels repetitive. Like this one feels like a steel mill, this one feels like a quarry, this one feels like a chop shop. Like they all do a good job of like representing like the stuff, like even the little items, like what tools they have lying around. It was just they put a ton of work into the environments in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really did. The only thing I really enjoyed, so I think it's the second or third stage, you finally get to go out into the city a little bit. And it's just, it's always these districts that you get to walk around in. And they're actually pretty substantial in size, I think mainly because of the pace at which you walk.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's also part of it.
Yeah. One of your kind of side objectives that I got really obsessed with, I've almost unlocked every achievement for this game through Steam. And one of the side objective goals is to like give out tickets or like find crimes that like, and it's minor shit like someone double parking or something. It's almost never a serious thing. There's occasionally some side stories where you get to make some choices on like, do you really punish the kid who's graffitiing things, like just getting a point out to people? Like you can choose whether you want to be a good force of change within the community or like an oppressive lawman. But
and they step up with that as the game goes on later.
They do, but it also became one of the most annoying things that I felt like I needed to do before I could move to the more fun action sequence missions. I wish they'd found a little bit better of a way to go about it. There is later the ability, if you skill in, there is like a skill progression to this game. You can put some points in here and there. And there is the ability later to have like the map unlock skill, where it just like shows you where POIs, points of interest, are on the map for these kinds of things. That was a huge help for me. I needed that desperately. So even though I wasn't going to go that route with my skill progression, I ended up feeling like I kind of had to get all of this.
Yeah, I did that too, but mostly because I think later on it gives you some other stuff that I wanted on that skills branch.
Yeah.
No, like I think that specific, like that was like specifically a singular bad quest. Like so you do similar stuff later on in the game, and you come back to the downtown area and you get similar quests, and it's a lot easier. Like there is like literally one guy, and it's that homeless guy who's drinking on a couch on the far flung corner of the map. Like it was just a badly designed little quest niblet, but other than that, like it isn't made any easier by the fact you have to plod everywhere. Yeah.
No, the one that got me was the one where the woman has her toesies in the fountain, and there's a sign right next to it that says like no like standing in the fountain or something, and I just kept missing. I was like, I don't know, my brain just didn't see that as crime.
No, yeah, exactly. You kind of it kind of encourages you to kind of just walk around with scan mode on constantly.
Yeah.
Which I don't know is like that great of a mechanic, but it was fun. Like, I mean, that is also like one thing I liked about this game is that it does kind of embrace the parts of RoboCop that are humor. Like, there's a bit where you have to run the front desk at the police office, and like you have like people coming in and like complaining about their neighbors and stuff like that, and you do have to give up parking tickets. And RoboCop is RoboCop. Like they don't take it entirely too seriously. They have a very holistic approach to taking content from the movie. Or the movies, I guess, but they're not like, okay, we're just gonna make it like violent RoboCop commentary police. We're not gonna just do that. We're going to make it feel like you're like all the different aspects of the movie are represented. Then that was really good, and you know what? And they even brought in the aspects of '80s science fiction movies. that we forget, such as the terrible dialogue. Like, some of the
Oh
dialogue
yeah.
in this game is absolutely abysmal. The cutscenes are sometimes hilariously bad. Like, I mean, again, it's a action sci-fi movie from the '80s, so like the bar is already pretty low. But like the one of your, like, your boss's boss, like, you're kind of like the one of the antagonists for a lot of the game. Like, it's like '90s anime video game bad. Like, almost like, yeah, it is. I was confounded by how bad the voice acting was in some of this.
Which, yeah,
Not RoboCop though.
no, 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 no,
RoboCop
no.
himself is done impeccably.
No, Peter Weller is phenomenal in everything he does.
Yeah.
The
No, exactly.
the thing that always got me through the game, there's this like IT department within the police department, and you have to go and get these like evaluations and tune-ups, and it does the whole classic, like, RoboCop's helmet comes off and it's just Peter Weller's face stapled onto this machine. It is so disturbing to see because they didn't quite nail that look. So it's enough of like and
Exactly.
I think it works
Yeah.
because it's supposed to be this body horror, but it was so unsettling and you have these close-ups on his face constantly as he's like emoting while you talk to these people.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
It's gross. It's so
it is
gross.
very weird. Like, there are some bits that are really actually quite emotional and effective, especially when he's talking with his partner at different points in the story. But there are points where you're like, it feels like RoboCop is the most human person talking right now, and it's like, and he's supposed to be talking to just like some random pedestrian. You're like, actually, something it reminded me of, even like, if you like some of the later Tony Hawk games where you'd have like little side quest missions that you'd talk to, and they would just give you this like a couple lines. That is all kind of what some of the side quest like cutscenes felt like.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's a game best played for its action more than anything, and my god, the action in this is tight. Every combat, the way they give you the power fantasy of being RoboCop, he is so strong. He is this immovable force that can just slow walk through an area where a motorcycle gang is zooming around, whipping around, shooting at him, and you can just like straight arm, clothesline one of them, grab the motorcycle, throw it into another, pile of, oh my god, dumpsters into people. Just
Yeah, the Kazuma Kiryu school of combat.
yes. Yeah. The closest, or not the closest, the first combat I got into, I did take my time
Yeah,
lining up a dick
get a little
shot for the
cheevo
very
for
first
it.
one. It
Yeah,
just felt
exactly.
appropriate. And that's an achievement. I got that little achieve.
I really liked, like, there's one boss fight in early mid game there where you fight it's not really a spoil. You fight an ED-209, and like part of it is you have to keep moving, and keeping moving as RoboCop is very unfun. Like, especially because it's not that difficult. It's not that different from a lot of FPS boss fights. Like, shoot at the weak point, but keep moving, and that is not what RoboCop's.
Yeah.
But like
first
that
one's
that
more
is not
difficult
what
than later.
RoboCop is made for. RoboCop. Yeah.
No, he's not run and gun. He is walk and gun. And it is walking with pneumatic tubes. Like, everything is hydraulics and
And they
pneumatic.
get the sound effects perfect. Like, especially like the bits where you like climb a ladder or jump down from something. And you're like,
oh,
yeah, that's what
so
that's supposed
good.
to sound like. The other problem, like the other, like not like problem, but like the other major like hurdle you end up dealing with, in at least early on, is like snipers. Like, again, like snipers in most are a staple of FPSs you have to deal with, but like that when you have so little mobility with RoboCop, it really becomes like this should just be something I can deal with, and it becomes a much bigger problem, which is interesting that they kind of let RoboCop have weaknesses, which maybe ruins the fantasy for some people, but certainly makes the game less tedious.
It's got this rise and fall of like this constant rise of more power being attained, and then a very steep fall, kind of near the end, where everyone else also seems to be getting stronger and stronger, and there's just so much going on, and there's a lot going on with RoboCop themselves, and it just, man, I thought I was really geared up and ready for those last few stages. They get fucking hard.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it feels like a throwback to that like classic era of licensed shooter in that way.
Yeah.
You do have
There's a
like go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it. You're absolutely right. It almost has like this time crisis element to it.
Yeah, almost.
Like in those where there's just these waves of enemies and they're popping up all over the place, and it really feels like you could almost stay stationary and just like have a pedal down on the ground for when you're popping in and out of cover.
Yeah. I mean, not that you can really like peek out of cover with RoboCop, because RoboCop doesn't do that.
No, there's no peeking.
That's another thing that feels very retro. Is like there's no jumping, there's no crouching, there is no peeking. RoboCop is RoboCop. He stands in the middle of the doorway and shoots. Like,
yeah, you want to peek a corner, walk out 3 steps from that corner, turn, and then look.
Yeah, exactly.
These are tank controls.
Yeah.
Not quite. It's not that bad.
No. But I mean, it would have been an interesting choice to do that. Like, it does feel like you're piloting a mech more than you're like
it does.
Actually like an FPS.
You're right.
No, like the other thing, the other game this kind of reminded me of, not like this is less about the combat, but when we played Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, like the kind of like ability to like live in a setting like that, like the fact that like they're not like trying to focus on making like. They're not trying to reference the movie constantly or trying to make you feel like all these characters are like even replicate the plot of the movie. Although they kind of replicate the plot of RoboCop 3, but not really, sort of, kind of. Which doesn't have Peter Weller in it. So this is kind of the sort of like the true RoboCop 3. I'm going to go ahead and say it's the true RoboCop 3.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But it lets you like be in the Detroit of RoboCop in a way that like I think a lot of other games wouldn't bother trying to. Like, just the fact that you have like these rest periods when you're back at the police station. You have characters that you encounter before and you come back and they're there. Like the little, like the chorus of police officers that are always like chatting with each other and talking back at the police station. Like, you kind of get to recognize some of them. It's really impressive. Like, I Hellscape, Detroit 80s crime movie shouldn't be fun to be in, but it really was well done.
Yeah. Little over the top on the
That's
criminals,
80s.
but it captures the vibe of RoboCop the movie.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
absolutely.
you could, and this like general 80s action genre. Like, you almost expected like the Crow to show up as like the
Yeah, it's that over the top, like every criminal is the Joker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like all criminals are just like bikers or punks, you know.
Yep. No, this was such a fun game. I recommend anyone who's been getting burnt out on the 80+ hour open world games that have been pumping out, just do yourself a favor. It's not even that high a price point.
I mean, it's $50, but like it's cheaper than $60-$70, and it feels worth it to me. Like, I mean, it's also got like a lot of replay value because you do have these RPG mechanics. You can kind of go back and like you have stuff where you can unlock saves and stuff with skills, and if you can go back and like in New Game Plus get a lot of that stuff that you couldn't get the first playthrough, or like what dialogue options are going to lead to what. There's technically multiple endings, so like it has some replay value. Not that necessarily should factor into the cost, but like it does feel like that kind of breath of fresh air. Like, it kind of reminded me of, like, I am generally speaking a Marvel movie apologist, but it was a few years, it was like 2016 when Mad Max Fury Road came out, and you're like this is just a nice palate cleanser. Like, oh yeah, they used to make action movies like this that were fun, and you could have a setting where it didn't matter if it was beholden to the true comic book character reality, or if they had to set up a sequel or all that stuff. You could just kind of have a action movie with a fun setting with that. Just, you know, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, it really is.
And also, like, you know me, I love games that let you walk, and the concept of a game that makes you walk, love it. Chef's kiss, perfect. I don't even have the option to run through this place. I am just gonna RoboCop strut down the street the entire way.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I think it's going to be a game that goes on my short list of like once a year, reinstall it, play through it again.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just fun. It doesn't take up like it doesn't occupy a lot of time. It You can play it over a long weekend for
yeah,
sure.
and because of that, you can also like you can it's digestible. You know what I mean? Like there isn't like this because you right. It can just kind of sit there in your library of stuff that you can kind of go back to because it
Yeah, I beat this level. Let me take a break.
yeah.
Come back later.
And in 10 years, they're not. You don't have to worry about like the service that sells skins being down, and it's not gonna whatever. There's no licensed music. You have to worry about it getting borked. Again, I guess the game itself is licensed, but like this is
Yeah.
just. I wish they made more games like this. I love this a lot.
The only licensing is Peter Weller's face, so if you're doing YouTube streams, you do have to go into the settings and turn it over to Robert John Burke's face.
Yeah, he actually sold his actual likeness to OCP, a fictive
Yeah,
company
yeah.
somehow. uh, but yeah, no, it's I wish every video game adaptation of movies were this good. Like I said, I'm trying to think of other because I guess that's the thing. It's like a good video game adaptation shouldn't just be like the plot of the movie, the beat
Right.
for beat for beat. Like this continues the plot of RoboCop. Like I said, it's kind of RoboCop 3 ish. Uses a lot of the same plot beats, but it extends the universe and but at the same time it lets you like be in the universe, which is really what you want with a video game. Like the thing about a video game, like the thing that video games do that other things can't, is they let you inhabit a space by let you maneuver within it in space and in time. Like you can spend 20 minutes looking at a corner. You don't have like a comic book or a movie or a TV show has to keep moving. A video game lets you be in a space, and I think the best video games adaptations do that, and part of that means that you can't have it just follow the plot of the movie. So like Alien Isolation is a good adaptation, or the Rockstar adaptation of The Warriors, which is kind of a prequel to The Warriors, but it like
Yeah.
lets you slow down, lets you inhabit this like world of colorful gangsters who have like strict rules and like feudal turf wars and stuff like that. Like it kind of really creates that setting by allowing you to like exist in the setting without having to follow the plot. Although it does do that later on.
It does to a degree, but I think your point's right in that, like, if they had just gone, like, well, Robocop is Robo and Cop, and that is the point of this, and it just was this weird run and gun shooter, like old Robocop, like a platformer almost.
Right.
Like, if you remember those old games of it, still fun, but what they nailed was it would be like a Batman game being just Batman and the villains, but Gotham isn't the setting. Like Gotham itself hasn't been fully realized. It just would feel empty, and it wouldn't feel like Batman isn't just Batman. Batman is Gotham. Like the Batman is there because Gotham. And RoboCop, I think, not necessarily to that degree, but RoboCop's Detroit is a very specific
Right.
vibe.
Yeah. Like
I
I
was
think
trying to
also
think of a fancier French word, but no.
yeah. No, yeah. I think it's funny you mentioned that with Batman too, because they both do like this kind of detective mode, like thing, and I think that they both kind of serve a similar role in gamifying that thing I mentioned, where you have to slow down and examine things. Where sometimes it's a dead body, sometimes it's a broken machine, sometimes it's whatever. But you're like by like slowing down because in a movie that would be very lame if you had to slow down and like. Look, I found the broken toenail or whatever the crap. Like, this indicates that the victim was dragged or whatever. Like,
No, that's got to be done in a montage.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like in a movie, in a video game, when you can slow things down like that, it really kind of makes the player try and inhabit that scene, even if it's not the entire universe.
Yeah. It's just that extra level of immersion.
Yeah, and it makes you aware of things. Like I have to now be thinking about, like my brain has to turn off from seeing like gun guy shoot gun guy, and like seeing quest markers or floating objectives or whatever. And now I'm having to like retune the way I'm thinking to look at objects. And I think that helps you kind of change your mindset for
Mm-hmm.
like appreciating the stuff that's around you. Like it really
Yeah.
lets you like my something I tend to obsess with is air conditioners in video games. Like there's this whole thing in Sleeping Dogs I remember, which was GTA kind of game with kung fu
Mm-hmm.
stuff set in Hong Kong. And I remember walking through an alleyway and I was just realizing like every single one of these air conditioning units is different. Like they've put different textures on all of them. There's like a wall full of them on this wall. And like since then I look to see how realistic and how varied like objects like that are. Um, and this game passes the air conditioner test. Like yeah, there's repeat assets, but not every some people have the same model air conditioner.
It's so funny. I like to see that stuff. It's mostly for me. So more and more games, and the Spider-Man game, one of the newest series of them, has been the biggest offender of this, where they're finally trying to like show you inside of the windows of places, even if you can't like inhabit that space, like go into it yourself. And it does the worst job because every window, when you actually like are crawling around and looking into it, it is a like 3x6 closet of a room, and it's just the same image repeated in every single window.
Pretty sure
They
it's just
might
New York,
mirror
man.
image flip it, but it is the same asset being placed in on everyone, and they don't even give it like a real depth of field. It's this very flat, it looks like an old Hollywood painted backdrop. It's
But at the same time, what are you gonna do? Like, especially if it's New York, when you have to do like literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of
tens of
times.
thousands. I know. I'm excited for the day that we've got something a little more dynamic. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, or like, yeah, it is. That's also a good point because like that is like because this game is so tight, where you have corridors and like open areas like the city, but usually it's like a block or two. And it kind of has that same thing that like the Yakuza games have because they're so small. You don't have to worry about like, oh, how do I generate 100,000 windows
Yep.
of this building? It's like, well, just have some of them open, have some of them closed, have some of them have things in it, have some of them not. You can have someone artfully address that.
They have the time to create a real space instead of pump things out as fast as they can in the most economical way, but still like keeping the integrity of the art. I'm not saying that Spider-Man's like skimping on assets. That's not true. But yeah, there's definitely something to smaller that I
Mm-hmm.
find better when it comes to world building.
And I think it also like it kind of goes like so. Like if you think about tourism, like if you go somewhere and you're gonna take pictures of something, like the way you're gonna remember it, you remember like dioramas, like little bits of scenes, like that cafe you sat at, or like
Mm-hmm.
waiting in line at this one thing. You don't remember like all of the light industrial buildings you drive through from the highway to the airport. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff just becomes background. You create dioramas in your memory of places, like I think, and
Mm-hmm.
so when you're trying to tell a story, that's more important than making sure you have a sandbox to play around in. And that's not to say I don't think that Spider-Man shouldn't have a sandbox to play in. I think that's great, and that's another thing that only video games can really do. But like you don't need to have every game be the sandbox because the sandbox doesn't lend itself to everything, and also it literally fights against human storytelling conventions. You know, like
Yeah.
it's. I mean, especially because if you think about Spider-Man, like half the time when anything happens, you go into a room. You know, it's like go to this building, walk into a door, and then the story happens. Like they separate story time from sandbox time. They don't try and make them exist in the same universe. Unlike a Grand Theft Auto, where every bit of story, most story is cutscene, then you get a bunch of radio dialogue as you move through that sandbox to another location.
Yep.
It's a very different way of pacing out story.
Yeah, well, because open worlds just really it opposes storytelling to a degree because there's too much player choice. The when you're making a show or a movie or whatever have you, you know that the audience is going to be watching exactly what you put on the screen at all given moments in time. So everything can be very purposeful and tight. When something is open world, you need to bring it into a building or some area where you have more control over what the player is interacting with and seeing, so you can get those storytelling elements out.
Yeah, and like as I mentioned, not to get too whatever about it, but when I was talking about like space and time in RoboCop, where you can kind of sit there and take in things and all that jazz. And you mentioned as well, like because RoboCop walks so slowly, everything feels much bigger, and you end up with the opposite with a lot of open world things where you have to like speed through places. Like if you give someone an open world game, the first thing they want is a horse or a motorcycle or a plane.
Some traversal method that's
Exactly.
faster than standard. Yes.
Exactly. Like they want to get from A to B. They want even in a sandbox, you instinctively, except for like Spider-Man where the sandbox is the fun, but even then, like even in an open world thing, the brain wants to create those dioramas like I mentioned before. Like we want to just kind of turn most of the map into that blur of light industrial stuff that you don't remember from your vacation. You know, you just want to get in that car and go to that place where that thing happens. The sandbox is kind of useless. I think in multiplayer games it really shows itself to be more useful because it creates a unpredictable like place and setting for you to interact with other people who are also acting unpredictably. But unpredictability fights against storytelling constantly. Like even if you want a story that is like good storytelling isn't in a way predictable. Like it is either like something is predictable and it's what you expect to happen, or there's the opposite of that, which is the thing that you don't expect to happen, but at the same time you're aware of it because you know what is expected to happen, and therefore like it's a binary of expectation. You know, while if you like just in a multiplayer game where you're not worried about storytelling, there is no expectation other than is he going to kill me or am I going to kill him? You know.
Yeah. Outside of the survival craft genre, where it's all just time padding, open world is time padding for games that have an actual narrative point to them. I mean, it's either time padding. I don't want to make it that, like, I don't want to belittle it that way. It's also a place where you can have a lot of fun with the mechanics of your game. You can experiment around and do new things. The traversal mechanics or mini games like time trials for those traversal mechanics, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's you can't explore the narrative within that space. You need somewhere a lot more contained.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Batman earlier, and I think that Batman is like at least Arkham City, which again nowadays would be considered a very small open world game, but at the time it was pretty big, and they put so much detail into stuff. Like even you end up with buildings that are nothing, but like the setting is doing so much of the storytelling in Batman. Not just calling attention to comic book characters you remember, although that is a big part of why I enjoyed it, but like it also is. It's constantly demonstrating Batman's character as he moves around Arkham City. Like a lot of these are the results of decisions he's made in the past, or these are like the reasons he feels he has to dress up like a bat and punch people. Like it changes, it works towards the character. And Grand Theft Auto, I think the one instance where it kind of works that way is, especially in Grand Theft Auto 5, is like that cruising. Kind of like you're on the California coastal highway, you have music playing, you kind of like can imagine like wind in your hair. But most of the time it doesn't do that. Most of the time you're just looking at...
The only way I can experience that is through imagination.
But
as a baldman.
Well, you can grow your beard out real good, I guess, you know, just let it
That's
like
true.
whip behind your shoulder.
Beard. Yeah.
But like most of the time it just evolves into looking at mini maps and quest objectives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this turned into a much deeper discussion than adaptation of RoboCop. But
because they did such a good job on the narrative, and it's because they clearly understand those tools of the trade of how to craft an environment in a world that is conducive to the narrative, not fighting against it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, way game, yeah?
Way game.
Definitely.
Yes. One of my favorite shooters in a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think I preferred this as a shooter more than I do like a Deus Ex. And not that that's not a great game. It's just it even goes a little more in the cyberpunk route of being a bigger and bigger open world, especially the later into the series they get. And this, I just want more of this. I want tight, contained world building and story together. It's so fun. Give me another Half-Life, right?
Yeah, right. And it's funny you should mention Cyberpunk, 'cause I think both Cyberpunk and Deus Ex do this, where they want to give you the player a lot of options for play style. Like maybe you don't have to be a shooty guy. Maybe you can be a sneaky guy. Maybe you can be a stabby guy. Robocop doesn't give you those options. You are Robocop, so
Yep.
they can just fine tune Robocop.
RoboCop's gonna RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are some fun, different technical things. Like one fun skill I liked that you can get is like the ability to like ricochet bullets off of objects to hit people in
Yes.
cover, and it like
No, it's
shows
so
up.
good.
Yeah, so you can just like, and you don't have to like aim. It's not like a pool game, which is what I was worried about when they saw the description of the skill. I was like, I don't want to have to do like one of those little pool mini games where I'm trying to shoot someone. But no,
While
it
you're
just
just like getting soaked with bullets.
yeah, it just automatically gives you like this thing on like on a wall, and you just shoot it, and it like will automatically bounce the bullet into a bad guy from there, and that's a fun mechanic. I love that.
It's not only fun, it almost feels integral later on when there are so many enemies and they're smart about being in cover, and it does it in a way that's like a Metroidvania where you see these things around and you don't really acknowledge their presence at first because they're just like just a different textured panel area on a wall. And then once you unlock that skill, you realize like, oh, those are for this. And they're everywhere all the time. So your brain starts rewiring and looking for those around.
Yeah, same thing with the fuse boxes. Once you get the ability to like suck power, like health out of fuse boxes, all of a sudden like you're just like they used to be in the background, but now you're like looking for them every time you enter a room.
Yep.
Great game.
Yeah.
Great game.
Really, really great game.
All right, I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna get some water because I've been talking for a minute, and then we're gonna come back with some more stuff.
Sure.
And we're back.
And we're back.
I don't really have a ton of news I wanted to go over, except for one thing which got announced, which was the follow-up to Strange Horticulture, which will be called Strange Antiquities.
Ooh. I can't wait for that.
Which is set, if you remember Strange Horticulture being kind of a mystery chill game set in a botanist shop. This will be set in a antique shop. And yeah, I mean, like my one thing I have about Strange Horticulture is I just wanted more of it. Like it felt like I kind of wanted something a little deeper with like the puzzles and something a little longer, something a little more. And I think this really would be great if it is that.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it will be, but I'd like to see it play a little bit on that Twilight Zone, or I think Simpsons probably, I'm sure, also did an episode where like it's the devil's antique shop.
Oh yeah.
And like everything there is like a monkey's paw situation.
Yeah, so but I don't have a ton else to announce. Obviously, we're going to have like not E3 coming up soon. So all the different companies will be announcing their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the dramas died down. I haven't heard. I don't think anyone's been fired since we last talked.
Yeah. I mean, there was some restructuring over at Arrowhead Studios for Helldivers 2. They're seeing a player base drop off, and I have to admit, I've definitely been one of them. I haven't been playing as much lately, but it's because there hadn't been a lot of new content.
Yeah.
So I noticed they're enticing people back, offering some mechs, some new mech options, and there's more and more leaks about the Illuminate, the actual alien faction that will be present at some point here. I hope very, very soon. But I don't know. Just needed a little bit of a a breather from it. Hopefully this game has a good long lifespan to it, but I don't know. There's been a lot of good stuff coming out lately.
Yeah, like I think also like I mean there are two ways you get people to stay in games. Like there's no way you can there's three ways. You can actually do the thing where you constantly have content coming out, which like no one can do. Fortnite is maybe the only game I can think of that literally is able to feed like a player base's content appetite. And that's just because it's extremely big with a lot of money behind it. The other way is to give it a social hangout where, like, yeah, you're not necessarily progressing towards something, but you're hanging out with your friends, your guild mates, you're putzing around your in-game house, you're crafting some color variant version of what you want.
Your Final Fantasy 14 or your Roblox.
Yeah, or your Minecrafts or your World of Warcraft to a lesser extent. But yeah, generally like the social communal aspect of it. Or the third option is you make things grindy as heck. And that's the most popular option and probably the worst one. And
yep.
I think like I would in most games I would prefer they choose to not try and maintain that environment if the third option's their only option, you know.
Yeah, and this one, grind is part of the game naturally. It's not that bad because we're as a community working towards the same objective with each other. As soon as the community completes the objective, everyone who owns the game gets the reward. Whether you played that week or not, you are rewarded for all the Helldivers' work. So it's good in that way. I'm curious to see if I step away for a month, am I actually going to get a month's worth of rewards from everyone else who worked towards it? Interesting to find out. But I do know they're going to be stepping back their content releases for a while there. And I think it was smart in the beginning. It was second Thursday of every month, a brand new premium drop. So you have to either use real money to unlock it or play through that month, and you will naturally get the premium currency through playing to unlock it. And it adds new weapons, new skins, new emotes, all kinds of things that dramatically change the way you'd play the game. They have now said they're going to step back and bring those out a lot slower.
Yeah, which I think
that makes sense.
Very fair.
I voted for that in a community poll like a month ago when they were like, hey, you loving how often we're doing this? And one of the options was like, no, take your time. Like, take your time. Make sure everything's fixed, because they're pumping things out so fast that they're like, well, we had to get this gun out because it's part of this pack that was a planned release that comes out this month no matter what. And now we're going to spend 2 months tweaking it and fixing it so that it doesn't, like, kill you every time you shoot it. It's like, well, then that shouldn't have come out yet.
Yeah. Two things I actually do have. I was talking about all the different Sims likes that are coming out, or to be coming out in the near future. Two little nuggets of information have trickled into existence. I don't know where I was going with that metaphor. First thing is Life by You, Paradox's attempt at the throne has been delayed indefinitely. It was due out last year, and they delayed it till June of this year. Now they have since delayed it again. Me personally, I am saying go for it. They've been very transparent with the game so far. They have lots of developer video of it. Like this isn't a game that we just see like vertical slice to vertical slice. They're definitely giving people a good look at what the game is, and it's not done. Like it is. It's very rough to look at, especially the character models. Like I think they've worked a lot on like the skeleton underneath the game, like the framework and stuff that isn't part of that like showy trailer, but it looks a lot like some of those like really like if you remember like not porn ads but like porn ads for like 10 years ago, like what those kind of like
oh yes,
like that's kind of the vibe the game's throwing off, and I'm just like like let's maybe put that one back in the oven. So I in this instance I'm glad that it's that they're delaying it, because it definitely needs work, and I'd rather them put out something from the get-go that can kind of get a lot of people interested in it, rather than it being something that has to like trickle into existence like like City Skylines 2 has had to, where I do think it's a decent game, but it's buggy, unfinished state at launch. I think only shot it in the foot. Like any money that they made releasing it when they did, they're going to lose in not having the DLC sales that they would have had it if they had released it in a finished state. So it was also made by Finnish people. Anyway, so I applaud that. The other thing is, Maxis announced that they're forming a team within Maxis, EA Maxis, to fix patches. Sims 4 has been out for almost a decade, and they are now deciding they're gonna really have someone look at fixing patches, or making patches and fixing bugs and that sort of thing.
How much is it going to cost to get the hot fixes and patches?
Yeah, they haven't announced that. I'm sure it'll be free to play, but
it's not going to be a season patch.
I mean, it might be. It might be. It's yeah. I don't know why they thought the fan base would be like, oh yay! Like I mean, it's like, yeah, good. Focus on fixing all the, like, there is literally like over $1,000 worth of content you're trying to make people buy. Like, maybe fix some of the bugs, but you shouldn't pat yourself on the back for. That's like me not doing like the dishes for a month and then like announcing to the whole house like, I have begun to do the dishes. Like, that's not.
Mm-hmm. I have begun to put together a team that will do the dishes.
I'm putting on my doing the dishes shirt.
Yes. It's like that should have been part of the plan to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. So
wild.
EA can't help but shoot themselves in the foot. That's just how they roll.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think. I guess in game news, the only game coming out this week of the episode, and it'll be out by the day before you hear this, if you listen the day this comes out, would be Multiverses, which is the unhinged Warner Brothers attempt to like get every piece of like that scene in Space Jam 2 as a Marvel v Capcom style video game.
Well, yeah, I mean it's Super Smash Brothers.
It's no, I don't know. I've seen a lot of like air juggle combat like moves being deployed, so it has that little bit of like an SNK or Capcom, fighter feel to it. What I'm confused about is why they put all of their owned property into one game. It feels like too much.
Well, I think the problem is that Warner Brothers has like it doesn't understand its own identity, like in the way that Marvel does. Not that I'm generally more of a Marvel person than a DC person, but like Warner Brothers just doesn't get it. Like they just keep seeing IP, like merge IP, blah blah blah. But they have because they have so much stuff. They have like Cartoon Network. They have all the original Bugs Bunny stuff. They have all the DC stuff. They have all these random movies like fucking The Shining and shit. Like, you don't need to, like, it would be like if if there is something common, you need to find what is common with all of those things, and it can't just be we're all owned by the same company. Like, you look at something like Kingdom Hearts, they found what was they found similarities, commonalities between, Donald Duck and Cinderella and Final Fantasy VII. They found those things that were similar. Mm-hmm. And Disney, when they find those things that are similar, they will put them together. But when they can't, they don't. Like, yeah, we'll mix like, Tangled and stuff with Pixar and all this stuff because they're basically the same style and setting and tone and all that jazz. But like, you don't see. I mean, unless you go to the theme parks, in which case it's a whole different story. But like, you don't see Winnie the Pooh in like Spider-Man comics, like that hasn't happened yet, at least. But at the same time, that is absolutely something Warner Brothers would do. They'd just be like, we have these two properties, we own them, they exist in the same setting because we can cross IP like this. Like,
I was gonna say, I've seen some pretty wild comic book crossovers. I do have somewhere in here Archie and the gang meet the Predator.
Oh, I mean, that's no Archie meets the Punisher.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
no,
still
I mean,
pretty brutal. But I just I've never been curious about like who's gonna win in a fight against Agent Smith and Velma. Like that's never entered my brain. I'm not interested.
I mean, that's the other thing is like, yeah, with Smash, like they are all video game characters who do video game
Yes.
character things. Velma and Batman, not on the same level. I don't want to see Velma punching Batman or Batman punching Velma. They should be working together to solve a mystery. It's not that weird to see Kirby and Mario fight because I don't know, they're like kids like hitting each other with pink things. Like they're not actually
I don't know,
fighting.
I am now getting a real campy sequence of the mystery machine gang all surrounding a captured Batman, and they unmask him and go, Bruce Wayne?
That actually would be pretty good. I'm sure that. I mean, there are only 59 Scooby-Doo animated movies, and I'm not joking. There are 59 of them.
It's
I'm sure
so
that happened in there
manic.
somewhere. I mean, my favorite is Scooby-Doo meet Kiss, the rock band.
Ooh, I don't think I've seen that one.
Ooh, it's very trippy. They go all out with the visuals on that one. But yeah,
Nice.
I don't know. It feels like Warner Brothers has just been terrible at reading the room ever since they released that Space Jam 2 thing, which was just like the most how do you do fellow kids thing like a big company has done in recent memory. Like, ugh, ew, gross,
Yeah.
yuck.
Yep. It's very unoriginal. I don't know. Maybe it'll be one of the best stage fighters we've had in a long time. I just don't know if that's true. WB doesn't have the best track record lately on games in general.
Yeah, well, the thing that makes Smash great, and the things that make like specifically like Melee great versus the other Smashes, it's like they put so much attention to detail in the movement and the gameplay, and not so much in like the level design, unfortunately. Or like a lot of those levels are just platforms floating on top of other platforms. But at the same time, like those games are great because they feel great. Every bit is great. Like you can be someone who doesn't know how to play video games and have fun playing Smash, and you can be someone who practices just that game for 4, 6, 10 hours a day and have fun with it. And that's something Nintendo's generally pretty good at doing. And it's not something that cash grab IP companies are very good at doing. So I think that while the genre makes sense from like a boardroom standpoint, I don't think it makes sense for the technical capabilities of Warner Brothers Studios or whoever they're licensing this out to.
Yeah.
They could just do like a Disney Dreamlight Valley, but do like Gotham Dark Knight Alley or something, and you can like
Okay.
go have like the Mystery Machine and
What
Batman.
tools would you be gathering for your
I don't know, maybe just like beat up people
professions?
like purse snatchers. Like that seems to be like the de rigueur thing of the DC universe is beating up someone who grabbed a purse in an alleyway. Just stretch that out into some kind of, or you could do it like make it like a dungeon keeper game, where you just try and make the most unpleasant like part of Gotham, just like lots of nasty alleyways and
That
boarded
actually
up buildings and
flip it around then, and you've got a solid game where you've got like Edward Nygma or someone trying to make like a literal trap house, like some place that Batman or Team Bat are trying to like go in and take down, and you got to set up traps for them and stop them. Hey, there you go. WB, make that game. That would be fun.
And that would be like an actual really good Scooby-Doo crossover, because like they're always falling into traps and crap, and you could totally do that. Do that game, WB. What are you doing?
Do that.
Especially now they don't have the Lord of the Rings license. I think they're just confused. Although,
man, once you get a hold of that, don't let go.
or you just shatter into 3 different pieces that no one can quite wrap their head around. That being said, I am looking forward to that Tales from the Shire Stardew.
No, I'm very excited. Very excited for Tales from the Shire. That's going to be so good.
Yeah.
I know at some point here I'm also going to play Gollum just to see how bad it really is. But that's going to be for my own personal amusement.
I'm sure that'll get shoved into a Humble Bundle at some point, and then I'll do that then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But aside from Robocop, what have you been playing this week, Mike?
The new Hellblade came out. Hellblade 2.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Been
I
playing
heard about
that.
that.
It's fun. It's difficult, and my God, it looks just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Mm.
Haven't had as much time as I wanted on it, but it's on Game Pass, so I'm playing at my leisure.
I have heard that it's no, again, I haven't played the first one, but a lot of the reviews I read said that they kind of detracted a bit from the themes of the first one. That they kind of maybe focus more on the action as opposed to the storytelling or like the character's development. Is that something you've
It
experienced or?
it moves a lot faster. The action is more consistent. Action wasn't like it was part of the game, but a lot of it was the internal struggles and dialogues going on with the character, the environment in which they inhabited, and then also action. Action does seem like it's been brought a lot more to the front of it, but they've also really tightened up their combat mechanics, so it feels good too. And I don't know, it just still works. It's so fun. It's so enjoyable, and the character they've made there is one of the better characters I've seen in a while in gaming. Senua is just very compelling.
Mm.
Yeah,
I definitely need to check that out. At least the first one.
you
At
do
some
need
point.
to play the first one first, and then yeah.
I haven't been playing. I started playing Rogue Trader, the CRPG, the massive CRPG by
Mm-hmm.
what's the name of it? Owlcat Studios, I think, the people who made the big Pathfinder game. I have just started it. I haven't played much of it at all, but I am like I have this block in my brain where I mean in my teens, I loved CRPGs. Like I couldn't get enough of a big, complex RPG. Whether that's Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale or Arcanum or Fallout or whatever. Like I just was my shit. And as I've gotten older, I just have so much. I have a lot more trouble focusing on, it, especially when like all these like newer ones started coming out, like Torment and Tales
Yeah.
of Eternity and Wasteland, and there was just like we went to this little like mini golden age of CRPGs, and arguably we're still in it with Baldur's Gate 3 kind of eating
Yeah,
everyone's
Baldur's
lunch
Gate
last
3 and
year.
Divinity and all the yeah, Larian in general is just a behemoth right now in that.
Yeah, exactly. But for some reason, like I have felt very detached from these games, and I have yet to feel that yet with Rogue Trader. I'm very early in, like I mentioned, and this game on the front page it claims it's 130 hours long, so it might be a while before I have a fully formed opinion on it, but it I don't know, maybe what I needed was just fucking 40K. Maybe I just needed that little dab of grimdark to get me
Little
into it. I
extra
don't know.
setting.
Yeah, just I mean, also it's such a good idea for like a story like Rogue Traders as this thing in Warhammer always just like, oh, if I had to live in 40K, which I don't want to, I would want to be a Rogue Trader because they just have it made in the shade. So like the fact that you get to live like that is the fantasy you want. Like we talk about this a lot on the podcast. Like what is the fantasy you want to be emulating in this game? And being a Rogue Trader is the one you would want to be in Warhammer because
Hmm.
it's like the only one that is yeah, you have control over anything, your destiny, your choices, anything like that. It is.
Well, it's why like anytime you give me the option of being like a smuggler or something in a sci-fi setting, I'm generally going to take that option too. Anything that gives me the most like freedom and autonomy, that's generally going to be what I choose. It's why I was so interested in like a Kingdom Come Deliverance when I first heard about it because it was like you are no one, you are nothing, no one cares about you. That's all the freedom I want. Like that is perfect, blissful freedom. And then you get the game and it's a trash
It's not
fire.
that.
It's
I
it's
mean,
really
it.
bad. No, it's really bad. I don't try to shit on games much, but it's a really bad game.
Yeah. It also like I said it sold a thing that wasn't. It really kind of told everyone it was going to be this medieval Morrowind, like
Yeah,
hard realism,
and
and
it was
it
more
really
just clunky instead of difficult.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah amongst other things.
Amongst a lot of other things, yes.
But yeah, I'm going to keep playing that, and I'll get back to you next week probably about my opinions on that game more. But
do you mean next week, or do you mean in like 2 or 3 days when we record again? Because we're doing another double up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, because I might not be able to play much for the next couple of days, so I'll have to think of something else to talk about. If I'm going to be editing this all day tomorrow, and then if we're recording on, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
I might go back and play some V Rising, actually, because I do need to finish that.
Keep playing. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Absolutely.
All right. We should probably get going so I can open windows and turn fans back on, so me and my dog don't melt.
Yep. It looks like he's slowly turning into a puddle on your bed.
Yeah, and that's not where you want a dog puddle.
No. No, it's one of the worst spots for a dog puddle.
All right. So thanks for listening to this podcast. If you liked it, subscribe, follow, tweet. Not tweet. Don't tweet at us. We don't have a Twitter.
Don't.
But you can
blue us. I don't know.
You can blue us on Bluesky. We have a Patreon now. It's patreon.com/the Save State Podcast. I think it's the Save State Podcast. It's linked in the description.
It's
we got
at the Save State Pod,
Cast.
I believe.
Nope.
Is it Cast?
Podcast. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a poll up there. We'd love to hear your feedback if you want to drop a line there.
Yeah.
Also, coming up soon, next couple weeks, we're gonna have some of our first Patreon exclusive content, and going forward, we're gonna try and do about an exclusive episode about once a month. We'll see where we go from there.
Yeah,
but that's all.
I think that's a good goal for now, and we can ramp it up once we get a little more comfortable in that space as well.
Yeah. Again, also it's going to be much looser. Much not that this isn't loose, but it's going to be more. We're going to do different things. It's gonna be a bit of a grab bag of content as opposed to just a video game we played.
Yep.
But yeah, you can also email us at thesavestatepodcast@gmail.com, or as the aforementioned Bluesky. Yeah. Other than that, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. We love you.
Oh, that's true. We do. Well, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'll have to check with my accountant.
Your emotional accountant?
Yeah. All right. So, bye.
Bye.
You do the thing, and then I'll say Robocop.
Welcome to the Save State.
Now presenting.
I thought we weren't doing the and now presenting anymore.
Well,
I thought we'd drop it.
But then you made the argument that.
I did make the argument. I'm very tired this week, Arvid.
This is fair. I mean, I let you win an argument. You should just remember that at least.
Oh God! All right.